Good morning. So yesterday I watched the documentary from Lewis Capaldi on Netflix. For those of you who don't know, Lewis Capaldi is singer-songwriter and has or is suffering, is that the right word? Or he has Tourette's, but it was only recently, somewhere in the middle of the documentary, it was somewhat diagnosed, and it was a very interesting documentary and also a really interesting showcase of mental health, because he didn't know that he had Tourette, and this is obviously a little bit of a spoiler, but I feel like with documentaries, this is not that bad. And I think if you are a fan of Lewis Capaldi, you're probably already aware of this. So every time he was under pressure, he got this tick in his left arm, and also then even when it got worse, in both of his shoulders. And it was really heartbroken to see, because for me, it is completely different no, it's not completely different, but it's one thing to see someone struggling, but if you see that that person suddenly doesn't have any control of his body, it's even worse. And why I wanted to talk about this, you know that I talk a lot about mental health on this channel, and I think so sad it is a good example about mental health and what kind of can make you become anxious, and in his case, his body showing physical reaction. And he puts it in really good words, which I also phrased or vocalized a couple of episodes ago, where he kind of said like, okay, the bigger I became and the bigger my concerts became, the more I realized how many people are kind of relying on me performing well. So the managers, all of the people that are building the stage, this other songwriters, his family. And that stressed him out so much, because when this documentary was made, it was right after his first album. So he kind of had to think about his second album, and he was always under this imposter syndrome and was kind of thinking like, okay, my first album was a fluke, I'm not a good songwriter, and I don't know what I'm doing. And more importantly, he realized all of the pressure that he now has with other people relying on his performance, and that put so much pressure on him and make him so anxious that his body was kind of acting up or flaring up. And fortunately, they diagnosed that this is also Tourette's. But obviously, this is really sad to see. But as I said, something that I mentioned a couple of episodes before, where we, or especially male, also have to kind of consider so many things that we have responsibilities for. Either we have a family, we have to pay rent, and I'm not saying that women obviously have that too, but I feel like women are more likely to talk about this to their friends, and male are very likely to kind of eat that up and keep it in themselves. Therefore, I'm kind of specifically only talking about male mental health. But obviously female have that issue as well, but they have the advantage that they are more likely, or the chances are higher that they will talk about this, while women don't. And with all of these responsibilities on our shoulders, it is very likely that the pressure builds up this anxiety and kind of chips away at our mental health. And I think it is so important to talk about this stuff because, as I said, male especially are very likely to not talk about it or to kind of downplay it, saying, oh, this is not that bad and other people have it worse, which I also mentioned a few episodes ago. I feel like kind of making your situation better by comparing it to someone else's misfortune. You know, that typical sentence other people tell you when you're trying to talk about your problems, and they say, oh, it's not that bad what you're going through. Other people are living on the streets. And I think that is so twisted to kind of use someone else's misfortune to make you feel better. So I personally don't use that kind of phrasing anymore. And that's also a reason why male probably don't talk a lot, or I also don't talk a lot to other people that much, because there are so many, so much unsolicited advice, or people kind of downplaying what you're going through. And that is basically the reason why people don't, or male don't really like to talk with other people. And what I can only say is, if a buddy of you see someone struggling, help them to talk about it, but do it in a way where you listen and you don't start judging that person, or also ask. I think it goes a long way if you ask someone, hey, do you just want to talk, or do you need me saying something about it, or do you want advice? And if that person asks for advice, be very mindful of your own perspective, because just because you potentially don't think that issue or that problem that person is going through isn't a big deal, you're not in a position to tell that person, hey, that's no big deal. That's not your place to be. So be very mindful about that. Be considerate that the person is struggling, no matter how you think about that problem. But also, if you have problems, don't be afraid to talk about it, or do it like I always say in these YouTube videos, vocalizing and verbalizing what you are going through by speaking to a video file is much more helpful than just going through it in your head. It helps a lot to try to communicate what's going on in your head in a way that you want someone else to understand what you're going through. So verbalizing it to a camera is extremely helpful. It was really heartfelt for me, a heartfelt documentary where I was feeling really bad about that person. And I know many people will say, oh yeah, that's the life of a celebrity, but I felt it very close to what I'm going through sometimes, and what I can see other people going through, which is the pressure of other people relying on you, the pressure of responsibilities on your shoulders, the imposter syndrome of thinking, oh, is what I'm doing actually good? Or am I doing the right thing? It's not necessarily just something in terms of creative, but sometimes people in their jobs think like, oh, am I doing a good job? And they question themselves, and this pressure gets to them. And as I always say, at least I consider the year 2025 was a rough year. And I feel like for everyone. And so mental health is something that has been attacked, in air quotes, by the situations that we are in. And I think it's very important to talk about it. And or if we have friends, to be good listeners. And if you don't have people around you. I have friends, but as I said, I sometimes struggle with talking to other people because I just, I feel like sometimes not being listened to, or I sometimes don't feel like people, they're waiting their turn to say something and they give me advice that is just not helpful. So I found this way of talking to a camera for me to be very, very helpful, and that is why I can highly recommend to do this. And I'm not, again, it's not about putting this online, but it's just this process of verbalizing what's going on in a way that you try to communicate it to a different person, or in this case a camera, in a way that the camera or the different person understands it, makes it much more easier for your head to kind of comprehend what you're going through and giving you a new perspective. So this tool is extremely helpful. And I find it also much more helpful than writing in a journal. It's different if you verbalize it and speak it out loud. All right, so this was my vlog. I hope this was helpful. Maybe check out a different video, I don't know which one yet, about mental health in a video up here. YouTube thinks that you like the video down here. And don't forget to subscribe by clicking the button up here. That way we'll see each other tomorrow. Thank you very much.